Welcome to Between the Vines. My name's Kevin Martin. I'm here with Jennifer Phillips Russo. We are bringing you one of our first weekly updates after harvest has been over. Harvest is mostly over. It's November. All the major processors are done. So this is going to be sort of a post-harvest update. We're going to get back into managing for 2023 and the crop year that occurs then. That's what we're going to talk about this week and sort of the beginnings of that and what we know currently, which is not a lot because there's a long way to go. But it begins again on November 8th and a little bit earlier than last year, so that's good. So I'm excited to do another year of getting us all the way to harvest. And Jennifer, I'm going to talk about costs, and that's what we know so far. That's what a lot of November and December sort of entails. I know there's some trellis work happening and some pruning work, but it's also preparing for the strategy of 2023 and buying things and what the economics of grapes is going to look like over the next year. And I think you've got some stuff too, right?
Oh, I have stuff. I do. I have a couple things actually. You were just talking about getting ready and buying things, which is a really good segue to introduce a program that we have going on. December 9th, we have a collaboration between PSU and Cornell. See how we did that? We like to always collaborate between our two teams and bring in our researchers behind us. So Brian Head from PSU and Dr. Katie Gold from Cornell are going to do what we call our spray management program. What is your spray program for 2023? Knowing that a lot of you are looking into making some of your decisions for buying and purchasing in December and the beginning of January, maybe listening to this program and hearing from the researchers themselves might guide you in some of those purchases. Again, that's December 9th. It is a virtual program. I can tell you that we have credits for New York State DEC applicate. I can't even talk today, Kevin. Like certified applicator recertification credits for the DEC. We're offering 3 of them for this program. 3 credits for this program. It's a 9 to 12. Brian Head will be talking about some of the research that he's been doing with some of the chemicals, and Katie Gold will also be talking about some of the research she's been doing with biopesticides and how you can maybe incorporate some of those into your program and why. So ought to be a great program. Looking forward to it.
Right. Just one additional note on the programming. We have applied for PA credits. We have not received them yet. We delayed that application process a little bit because we wanted to get back in touch with the speakers to see if we could try to maybe get some core credits for those courses. So we would be offering on the PA side, if they get approved, 4 credits. And in addition to the 4 credits, 2 core credits for a total of 6 credits. And just a reminder, if you forgot, we get twice as many credits in PA because we need twice as many. We don't do half credits. 30 minutes is a credit. So it's all the same except for the fact that in PA, we might get some core credits for it, which I know some growers have asked for. So that would be good news if we get that and, join us for that. You can register on our website already. So please join us.
Yeah, we're also in the just beginning. I was going to say the thick of, but that would be a lie. So last year we started our first collection for bud hardiness, the cold hardiness work that we are doing. That is on one of the programs where we have been spraying some vines. One of our just some different concoctions to see if we can increase cold hardiness. I don't want to go out and tell everybody what it is and have you start spraying it until we actually research it and get some data down. So we started collecting those, ran that one, and then we're going to do our normal varieties then this week. So all of that information will start to be posted this season on our website as well, and also the Cornell website for cold hardiness.
So I did want to talk a little bit about costs and where I wanted to start. The questions I've been getting, which are slightly premature, but there is some good data out there that might not be the most important data, but it does matter. So a lot of growers want to know as they start to purchase items like fertilizer or higher labor, what the price of grapes is going to look like in 2023. Obviously, as far as the cash market is concerned, I really don't have a great idea. I would venture to say I don't know anything. Because if facts on the ground change really quickly, the cash market can adjust all the way up until August. But I think the question that is more fair with cooperatives is we're going to get paid, monthly or quarterly over the next 4 months. So, and you're going to get paid based on their profits. So what does that look like? What does that those macroeconomic conditions look like? Will they change in January, or will they change in February? And so it's a little bit easier to forecast because those things are occurring a little bit sooner. So that really involves 2021 and 2022 grape prices, but it allows you to budget for your 2023 purchases because that's when the timing of the payments occurs, such as the complicated nature of farming within a co-op. Certainly has its advantages and disadvantages, but it's been working very well for us right now. So what that means is, I've taken a look at, it's not my favorite index of inflation. Everybody's talking about inflation. And if you were really trying to get an idea of, is the economy in a broad state of inflation, this wouldn't be where you would look. You'd look at something like the PCE index. You'd look at maybe the PPE index for people who participate in businesses. But if you really want to see, like, are consumers able to respond to what's going on, and are they responding to food prices, then it may make sense to take a look at the consumer price index. So this is not like a good measure of, are my costs going to rise as a business? Is the economy in a state of inflation and are costs going to rise over the next 5 years? I wouldn't use this measurement for that. They're all somewhat correlated. It's just like the worst one of the three. None of them are bad. It's just the worst one. But it gives you good data on retail food prices. And the economy continues to show that retail food prices are rising. And you can look specifically at processed food. You can look at processed fruits and vegetables. And we are seeing that food is not necessarily driving the inflation. For example, over the last 12 months, food at home is up around 11%.
I certainly feel it.
Right. and it may be more or less than that depending on what you buy. So some people may feel it more than others. Energy is really what is driving inflation in terms of the actual volume of what costs more. Because energy prices were low, they had more room to grow. So that's why this measurement is not a great measurement, because it makes a lot of sense to take food and energy out a lot of times because there's a lot of volatility there. Like if food prices go up 11% and then down 20% and then up 15% and they end up exactly where they were 6 months ago, that isn't that important for broad economic inflation. And so we do see some of that, but we are seeing month after month of sort of steady rises in inflation in those categories and overall. So this is more of a lasting thing so far. Obviously, if you've, watched any of the boring economic news, you've seen that lots of inflation is bad for the economy overall. So they're doing things to try to stop it. So
Kevin, I just want to interrupt you for a minute because most of the people listening know that this is when I glass over because I don't understand a whole bunch about the economics, which is why we have you and we are such a great team. But if you can talk to me like I'm 4, so why are you looking at this consumer price then if it's not a good indicator? How does it relate to?
Well, I guess it depends on what question you want answered. So we could talk about inflation a little bit, what that means and what's driving it. I don't know if that's extremely important to the grape grower or not. It might be important to understand it, but what's important to the grape grower is, can National Grape and the customers of Growers Co-op and the customers of Westfield Made, can they go to their retail customers and say, hey, I want an extra $1 a gallon?
Okay.
I want $5 extra a gallon. And how are they going to respond? We know in 2012 how they responded, right? They were like, whatever, I'll just go buy a different kind of juice, or I'll go drink some water, or no, everything else is cheaper, go away. So we know how they did respond then, and it appears as though that is not how they are responding to changes in any beverage prices right now. So everybody is changing beverage prices. They're all obviously going up. whether they're alcoholic or non-alcoholic, and the consumer is continuing to buy them. So until that changes, I can guarantee you that retail grape prices will not go down.
So that bodes well for our growers.
Right. Now, I can't predict when it will change. Obviously, the Federal Reserve would like it to change because it's bad for the overall economy. So they are doing lots of things to try to make it change. And for sure, it's very unlikely that you will see overall prices decline by, say, 3%. They want inflation at 2%. You're not going to see deflation, so below zero. They're not going to do anything aggressive enough for that to happen for more than a month, I don't think. But you
were going to say a year, but the month just shattered me.
But you could certainly see that in food. Food and energy are volatile. That's why we don't use them as measurements of inflation overall. We've seen it lots and lots of times where the price of food goes down 1 or 2% in a month for a couple of months. So you could see price decreases in the food category. And I wouldn't even say could, you will. But from what baseline, right? Like if prices go up another 10% over the next year, how much will the price of food fall? And that's very, very difficult to predict. So if it goes up another 10% and then down 5%, I doubt the grape grower cares. It will all be measured if the grape grower cares, it will be some complicated math because it will be based on how much other costs have gone up. But the actual price by itself will not be the primary concern. It will be related to other costs. And as much as the grower wants higher grape prices, they don't want other costs to rise. So that's exactly what the Federal Reserve is concerned about. And to me, and this is, I wouldn't say all economists agree with this, but if we were talking about broad-based inflation, a lot of people think that inflation is when prices rise, and prices rise because people raise the prices. And I sort of disagree with that philosophy, at least 90% of it. So you need two things to occur for inflation to happen. You need people to think prices are going to go up, because if they think prices are going to go down, they're just not going to buy it, right? If you went to the store and you said, hey, there's some grape juice, it's $10. But I know for a fact, based on the last year of experience that I've had buying grape juice, that I should just wait a week and it'll be half that price.
Got it.
They're not going to buy it. You don't have the ability to raise price no matter what's going on in the broader economy. The other thing is, if that grape juice is $10, that consumer also needs to have $10. It doesn't matter what their expectations are unless they have $10. And that's a little bit harder to understand because there's a lot of different ways to get $10. That I'm not saying you need to have $10 cash in your wallet. You just need to have the ability to get $10 somehow, somewhere. And what that means is if prices are going to rise, there needs to be more money in the economy. If there isn't more money, there won't be inflation. Now, money is sort of this like magical thing that the Federal Reserve gets to create, so they can and have increased the amount of money. But the other things that can happen are consumers can create money. And the way they do that is they use it. So if I give it to you, if I give you $1, you have $1. If you give it to me, I have $1. And if that money starts moving faster, that's called the multiplication rate.
Oh.
So that creates more money because it's moving with a higher velocity. So if it's moving faster, there could be more money. And that's where the expectations of consumers and producers are very important. Because if they think prices are going to go up and they start using money, then the access to money improves. As opposed to say, I have $1 and I put it in my pocket and it sits there for 30 years. That's not really $1, right?
Right. What kind of terms are you talking about on this movability of how it moves faster?
What's that?
What like terms are you putting around what is a fast moving money and then it's a perception that we have more?
So it's called a multiplier effect. So if somebody puts $1 in the economy, this is a great example. In 2008, the Federal Reserve printed a bunch of money. They gave it to banks, and banks were like, the world is ending. I'm giving this money to no one. There is no way I'm going to use this money and give it to Jen so she can build something with it. I'm just going to put it in this account. Well, that money didn't do anything. It never multiplied. That was $1 trillion that just sat there and did nothing. So it didn't do anything to grow the economy or grow prices. It didn't increase the supply of money available to people spending money.
Okay.
Now, when you give $10,000 to like every American that has children that doesn't have a lot of money, because that happened in 2020, that money got spent. And the
Right.
people who spent it on things like construction and food. And the people who got it, they spent it again and again and again. So that money was different money because it was used many times.
Over and over again. I understand that side of it, but in terms of the growers, like I'm thinking, there's holiday seasons coming up, so people are going to be spending more money. Does that play into all of this, or no, that's too short of a time period to move anything?
No, so this is a more, I mean, in the sense that yes, it matters. Like when it changes from a relative perspective, that's when we see the economy change. But like the holiday season is just noise in all of that.
Okay.
So this has more to do with what expectations are. And the Federal Reserve is actively trying to change those expectations by saying, if you want to buy a house, you have to pay 10% interest instead of 2%. So you might want to save your money instead of spend it. They're trying to slow the speed of money down is one of the things they're doing. And then the other thing they're doing is they're raising the price of credit. Credit is one form of money. So you have a dollar in your pocket, cash, that's one form of money. You can go to the bank and ask them for a dollar, that's another form. But when you go to the bank and you ask for a dollar, if the interest rate goes up, the probability, the chance that you might not go to the bank and ask for that dollar goes up because it's more expensive to get that dollar. So they're trying to decrease the supply of money.
Okay. Which is good for our growers.
Well, I don't know.
That's
Is it
what we
good
were
for our
going
growers?
for.
No, I mean, I would say that is bad for our growers because we've seen, if you look back at history, this is a very blunt instrument. They're walking around like an ogre trying to change things, and they don't really know what they're doing. It's not that they're dumb. It's not that they're not experts. It's just that it's a really hard problem to solve. So what that means is you're going to see probably at some point food prices hit negative, and nobody wants that to happen, but this is how blunt instruments work. So 9 times out of 10, when they try to steer left, they steer too far to the left. And when they try to steer right, they steer too far to the right. So that part is bad. It's just a thing I think that growers should watch for because it should affect their planning. And I would say the best thing that a grower could do is to accept that reality. And so the best way to accept that reality is to say, as far as I know, 2023, grape prices are going to be high. So I'm going to invest in things like potash, even though I think it's really expensive. I'm going to invest in my spray material, even though I think it's going to be expensive. I am not going to use a variable interest rate loan to go buy 100 acres of grapes.
Got it. Okay.
Because that is a more permanent decision. So if I am wrong about the price of grapes, I can adjust next year. And probably the market will adjust for me because if the price of all commodities fall, if the price of foods falls, if corn falls, the price of fertilizer is going to fall too. So it will adjust for me and things will sort of kind-of-ish work out. If I go buy a farm, and especially if it's subject to interest rates, I'm investing more of my net worth into grapes, and I am also doing it at a higher price.
Got it.
That is not to say that you can't go buy a farm. It is just to say that one should realize that it's more expensive to buy a farm right now. And it might be more expensive for a number of reasons, but interest is one of those reasons. And, what kind of long-term bet can you afford to make on the industry? So just make sure you do a lot of careful planning in the sense that, is this going to work for you at $250 a ton?
I'm glad that you mentioned potash because there was a lot of black leaf out there, and I do understand that your dollar doesn't stretch as far, But on the other side of it, you need to support that plant so that you have that to deliver to continue to get those dollars. I
Right.
saw a lot of black leaf out there indicating potassium deficiency this year, which we all kind of knew was going to happen because it was such a huge crop, 2021. And it was just people were dialing back because of where prices were. And it was quite evident in some of the vineyards around here. So I don't suggest doing that for another year.
It was a bad year to dial back.
Yeah.
If you're hoping to get lucky, you didn't. Unless your version of luck is I had 2 tons to the acre, so it didn't really affect the quality of the crop. But yeah, I mean, it was pretty dry. So if anything, you'd want a little bit of a surplus of potash, and that didn't work out. So, I mean, maintenance, I think probably was what we were recommending a year ago because prices were a bit of a shock at that point. They had just gone up. I think you can start to drift away from maintenance and just say this high price is here to stay. So if you want to do some building, you can build, but don't go crazy. And I think that recommendation needs a lot of context too. Like, how bad is your potash situation when we start talking about maintenance? If it's really, really important for you to build, maybe you can consider building. But it's also a good example, right? Like, you shouldn't be scrimping on potash and buying a farm. Like, you got to do one or the other. I think the most efficient thing a grower can do rather than get larger is to get more production out of the acreage they have. The industry as a whole figured that out in 2011, 2012. Through some industry consolidation, it was like, hey, we lost like 4,000 acres and average production is up over 5 years. What are we doing? Like, we thought production was supposed to be here and it's not. So yeah, that's bad for the industry, but it's great for the individual grower. They're farming 100 acres instead of 125 and they're getting the exact same yields. So make sure you're doing that first before you go out and buy an extra 25 acres and get nothing for it. You could just farm 100 acres and get the same amount. Yeah. The one thing I would say in terms of costs, the inflation on the producer side is complicated. So we know that there's obviously some meaningful lasting inflation in the economy. We've already talked about that in the last 20 minutes. But the supply chain was a thing. Like, what started this all, what everybody said is like, hey, there's 3-4% inflation. It's not real. It's the supply chain. Some of that's true. Some of that was true. The supply chain was doing its thing and it was a mess. Everybody remembers last year when Roundup wasn't $100. It was like, if you give me $100, I might try to go find some for you.
Yeah, we all on a barge somewhere stuck, right?
Right. It was a fake price. It was like, yeah, I'll give it to you for $100 if I can find it, but I'm not going to be able to find it. So that looks like most of those things are starting to scale back in the sense that I don't think the price of Roundup or the price of glufosinate is going to be crazy. It's going to be higher this year than it was 2 years ago, but it's going to come down a lot. And if you look at the production in China and in India, so far, it looks like it could come down even more. I don't know when it's going to come down more, but it looks like fair market price is below what retail price is right now. So there's room for it to come down. It just has to work its way through the supply chain. So right now, I think it's around $30 a gallon for Roundup, and it could fall to 20 or 15.
That's great news compared to where it was.
If nothing changes, I think it definitely will fall, but when will it fall? I mean, it could be for the 2024 crop. So, I wouldn't go and buy a 3-year supply just because it's $30 a gallon. I don't think that's what I would do.
Boy, that must be tough for you to to say stuff like that.
Well, it is because you're buying from an economy that's not an economy, right? Like, people wanted to make Roundup last year, but they were doing it in places where the government had the ability to shut off electricity to make sure that people had electricity for things that were more important, but not necessarily more financially important for our economy. So, this could change if important production facilities get shut down at the wrong time, you could see temporary spikes in price. So you definitely don't want to run lean. You don't want to, hey, I need 50 gallons for this year, so I'm going to have 48 gallons in inventory or 35 gallons in inventory, and I'll buy the other half later. I wouldn't do that either. So, but I think what you are going to see in these areas is price volatility. So if you buy at the wrong time, you could pay way too much or get a very, very good deal. And trying to predict that is really difficult.
I was going to say it's probably a crapshoot, right?
Right. Yes. So, I mean, the good news is I think we can continue to manage our row middles with post-emergent herbicide for a little while longer. So that's good news, because I think there were days when we thought maybe we wouldn't be able to do that.
Please make sure that if you are using Roundup for suckers and stuff, make sure the leaves are off the canopy. I did have that question come in if it was okay to spray it, and I said, not if you have leaves on your canopy. You don't want that getting into your vine.
So, yeah, I think that's all I have. I think we've talked enough about posts. Posts are not like a thing that's measured by the government. So, the only thing you can track is sort of trucking costs and sort of just watching the individual market. So we know they're very expensive right now.
Yeah. Something that we're all getting used to hearing, right? Everything's very expensive right now.
Well, like I would say the thing about posts that's different than say Roundup is if you look at the fair market price of posts, you don't see anything wrong with it. They get trucked all over the place to get to market. You've got to cut down a tree, you've got to pressure treat it, sometimes you've got to truck it just to get it to another market. You've got to truck it to get it to the final destination. So sometimes they're on a truck 4 times. Price of trucking isn't going to go down anytime soon. I mean, maybe it will in 3 years, but not in the short run. And so even if the price of the commodity itself of wood declines, like we saw in construction a little bit, I don't think it's going to affect the price of posts that much. So they're just going to be high.
It's sort of a segue, but not really. But there's another thing that we actually need to talk about. And that is a program that if you are in Western New York and listening to this podcast, that is being put on by a couple of different organizations collaborating. So Cornell Cooperative Extension of Chautauqua County, America's Small Business Network of Jamestown Community College, Farm Bureau, and the Chautauqua County Planning Department are putting on what we're calling, I want to get the right title, so I'm trying to pull it up because we've had different titles that we're calling it. The 2022 Chautauqua County Agriculture Forum Day. It's going to be Wednesday, November 30th. It's going to take place at the Jamestown Community College at the Carnahan Center, which is from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And there's a keynote speaker who is coming in to talk about climate change and what that means to agriculture and our community moving forward. And then there are breakout sessions after that. I'm trying to pull it up quickly. Kevin, you're doing a breakout session. Do you know what you're talking about?
Yeah, I was going to talk about business organizations and how different business organizations fit into agriculture and how you might organize yourself and your business operations for risk management control.
That's great. So we have 3 different breakout sessions, and some of our speakers are giving that talk at least twice so that you don't have to miss one of these talks. We have another talk about stress management on the farm and resources to grow the food and ag economy in New York. That talk's being given by old Senator Kathy Young, who is now part of Cornell Center of Excellence for Food and Agriculture. So she will be there as well. And then Farm Bureau will be giving a talk about a bigger part of your farm's business plan and advocating for that. So I think there's more. Let me just look. We have hogs, hops, and honey. Oh my. Overtime, adapting to your management strategies. And Kathy Young again. And I think there's one more. Legal resiliency. So it's going to be a day with lots of organizations talking about how they could possibly work into your business plan. Do you have anything else you want to add about that?
I don't think so. Come join us.
Okay, so I'm trying to see if there's a registration or you just show up. Do you remember?
There is a registration. It will be through, so the host is actually Chautauqua County Extension. So you'll register through I'm 99% sure their website.
So again, it's the
Might already be up.
the 2022 Chautauqua County Agriculture Forum. So if you just even search on that, it will get you to the destination you need to be. November 30th, put it on your calendar. Hope to see you there. That's all I have, Kevin.
Let's see. So I was going to see, so at chautauqua.cce.cornell.edu, I was going to see if you could register. You can. There is a registration link. So they have a list of events, but November 30th actually is a few events away. So you're going to want to click on their events page. They've got 5 or 6 events before that one. And so the Ag Forum, you can click on that one, read all about who's speaking on November 30th, and all the way down at the bottom, there's a registration link.
Fantastic. That's probably for food orders and such, yeah?
Yes.
Okay.
All right. So thank you all for joining us. We'll see you hopefully next week. We get another chance to do this. We're going to try to get back to doing this once a week. Stuff like COVID was running around our house, so we got a little bit delayed, but we're back on track.
I'm glad we're all back on track. I'm glad you're all feeling better.
Yep.
Thanks for joining us, everybody. Have a great week.